Welcome to Better Sex, where you get the information and inspiration to create and enjoy your best possible sex life. Join your host, sex therapist Jessa Zimmerman, as she brings you expert guests, helpful tips, knowledge, and strategies to improve your intimate relationships. And now, your host, Jessa Zimmerman.
Hey everybody, it's Jessa. Welcome back to another episode of the Better Sex Podcast. So glad you're here today. I think this is going to be a popular episode because this is something I hear about in my practice a lot. And I was so excited to get contacted by this company, Promescent, who reached out because they have a real focus on premature ejaculation. This is something that comes up a lot, whether it is physically kind of induced and people have a proclivity to it based on their physiology, or whether it is anxiety driven, nervousness, hyperarousal, that kind of thing. And it's a real struggle for people. And it's been hard to find ways to treat this besides just sort of cognitive behavioral therapy, trying to talk people through their anxiety and ways to work with their partner. But anyway, today's episode is all about premature ejaculation, how that's kind of defined, how maybe it should be defined, what kinds of impacts it has on people, and then specifically this breakthrough new product that's available as a treatment option that really sort of overcome some of the side effects or the downsides of other ways that people might treat it. I hope you enjoy the show. The Better Sex Podcast is brought to you by the Sex Without Stress online course. It's a course for couples to escape the cycle of disappointment, avoidance, and pressure in your sex life. So if you're in a pretty good relationship, there's a lot of love and goodwill, but sex is your struggle, this could be for you. You work in the privacy of your own home and at your own pace to create a sex life you can both look forward to. If you want to learn more, go to sexwithoutstress.com/program. All right, Jeff, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today.
It's our pleasure.
So tell me, if you don't mind, start off with a little bit of how you ended up doing this work. How did you get to where you are?
You're going to laugh when I tell you this. Okay. So I don't think you even know this about me. I owned a semiconductor engineering business. Then I make a career switch to be the CEO of a company that's a pharma company for sexual matters. And you can imagine people go, wait a second, you own a semiconductor. How exactly did that transition occur?
Right.
It's relatively simple. I was born and raised in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I was living in Southern California. My next door neighbor and very dear friend was a gentleman by the name of Dr. Ronald Gilbert, who was a urologist at Hoag Hospital, Newport Beach. I was very fortunate. I come from a wonderful family, but we were poor and I didn't have a whole lot. So I moved to California with 2 suitcases, $500. And I was very fortunate, worked and saved my money. And at 53 years old, I had the good fortune of being able to retire. So I retired, sold the biz, was like, okay, I'm going to kick back and enjoy the rest of my life. So I went to see Ron for my yearly PSA physical, the whole thing. He was my doctor, friend.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And he says, hey, I developed this new treatment for PE. I'd like your opinion. I know you have excellent, financial and business skills. And of course, me at the time being 53 years old, I go, you developed a treatment for physical education, PE?
Yeah, right. I mean, we should explain that PE stands for premature ejaculation.
Yes,
right?
PE stands for premature ejaculation. But at that point, to me, it stood for physical education. When I was in school, you take PE.
Right.
Like, no, it stands for premature ejaculation. I go, oh, okay, I didn't know that. So we start talking. Now, ironically, literally a week prior to this, I'm watching 60 Minutes. They have a special on counterfeit drugs. And 90% of it was all about the ED drugs. Because if you're going to counterfeit a drug, there's 2 things that are important. A huge market for it and a high price. That way you come in below that, you hit that delta, and there's a big market. So when I'm watching this, I was astounded because they were saying at that point that the ED market was $4 to $5 billion a year in legitimate sales of Viagra, Cialis, Levitra. And there were 1.2 knockoffs for every legitimate sale of a tablet. And these knockoffs are being made in Mexico and in China. I'm like, oh my God, that market's like $10 billion between regular products and counterfeit. So I say to Ron, okay, you have this revolutionary product for PE. How big is the PE market compared to the ED market? So I'm anticipating him saying 5%, 10% as big. He looks at me, he goes, 15% larger. I'm like, excuse me? Wait. Do you realize how big the ED market is? He goes, I'm a urologist. I know exactly how big the ED. I go, that's right. That's right. You know, and I go, that's impossible. He goes, no. He goes, as a matter of fact, 10 to 15% of ED is misdiagnosed PE. And I'm like, how's that? He goes, if a man has acute chronic PE, meaning always over a year, never fails, he goes, he will develop anxiety-related ED. He won't get an erection because his mind knows that getting an erection leads to an unsatisfactory conclusion. So it's like stage fright. I'm like, whoa, that makes sense. So he goes, not only that, he goes, the one thing people need to realize is the clinical definition of PE by the ISSM, which is the International Society of Sexual Medicine, is 90 seconds. You can never have intercourse, masturbation, oral sex, anal sex, anything more than 90 seconds to be categorized as having clinical PE. And I'm like, wait a second. That means if you last 2 minutes, you don't have PE? He goes, no. He goes, not only that.
2 minutes is sort of like average.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, here's the crazy part. The average man lasts about 5 minutes. We're not talking PE. We're talking healthy adult male. The average adult male lasts about 5 minutes during sex.
Right.
The average female takes 18 minutes of thrusting or penetration to achieve climax during intercourse. So a lot of therapists, a lot of urologists call that the arousal gap, the orgasm gap. So even in healthy couples, and then it made sense to me because I go, no wonder there's 5 trillion vibrators in the world. And there's not a guy on this planet that at one point in his life went, oh my God, I hope she doesn't get on top. I hope she doesn't go reverse cowgirl. I can't last in that position. Those are all coping mechanisms that people believe that that's what you have to do. You have to think about, your grandmother, baseball scores, you know what I mean?
Right. Look at the scene. Now, I do want to just point out as a sex therapist, I'm just going to interject this. Most women don't have orgasms from penetrative sex.
Correct.
So I just don't want to perpetuate this idea that if guys just lasted longer, we'd all have this orgasm from thrusting, because that's not what most women have.
I was going to say, both clinically, I've learned and been educated from my life experiences. I've also learned that there are some women who are like, I don't know what you're accomplishing here, but at a certain point, this isn't going to do anything. I need a different way of stimulation, whether it's manual or oral. So no, you're 1,000.
Right. So I just wanted to throw that out there for the listeners. Yeah.
Intercourse through penetration, but there's a certain percentage you could last for days. This is not going to matter.
Right.
So it got to a point where I was really fascinated. So one thing led to another. I just retired, and I found out that when I retired, I was a lot more boring than I thought, because I had raised my son as a single father, and he had just left for college. So I went from being a single father and running a huge, thriving business all at the same time to retiring, and he left for school. So instead of having 0 free hours, I had 24 hours, 7 days a week. I didn't golf. I didn't take yoga. I didn't do anything except raise my son. I was like, what am I going to do with myself all day? So I ended up investing in the company, and just on my own, I wrote him a business plan, and oh my God, that's pure genius. I go, no, it's common sense. And one thing led to another. They asked me to take over the company. So I took over the company. And so it was not exactly a tried and true route where you go, oh, that makes sense. It was logical that your semiconductor engineering led you into the sex business. So it was a bizarre transition, but it made sense because this was my neighbor. He just wanted some business sense. So on that sense, it really was logical because he just brought someone in with a business mind. He had great developmental and market awareness, but he didn't know how to run a business.
Right. I can see the synergy there. He's got the medical and he's got the treatment, the idea about that. He needs the business mind.
In a tragic sense, you absolutely won't believe this. We start taking off. And in 2013, on January 27th, he was murdered in a case of mistaken identity. Somebody who had a prostate surgery 23 years prior decided he was going to kill the doctor that did the surgery, got the name. He went to the VA and he had the surgery at the Veterans Administration, and he wanted to see the records, and they allowed him to go see the records. And the guy did the surgery. Supposedly, his name was Ron Gelhart. Obviously, that's a different person than Ron Gilbert. And he made an appointment. Ron came in thinking he was seeing the last patient of the day on that day, and the guy was waiting in a shooting position and shot him before he realized it was the wrong guy.
Oh my gosh.
We as a society tend to make more out of people in death than they are in life. It's just who we are. As soon as someone dies, oh, he's the greatest ever. And in some cases, you're like, well, he was good, but don't go overboard. This is the one guy you didn't have to do that with. He was as much of a gentleman. He was a wonderful husband, a wonderful father, a great doctor, a great friend. And, the police had everything on lockdown after this happened for a week. And I know myself and everyone else who loved him was like, this is crazy. The guy didn't have an enemy in the world. Why would this happen? And then when you find out that it was mistaken identity and it wasn't him, I don't know if I can tell you how it feels to be a friend of someone, to have something that's senseless and that random happen. And I live in Summerlin, Nevada now. And people always go, how'd you end up in Nevada? And I moved here 3 months after it happened because you can't run from emotional pain.
Right.
But you can remove the triggers 8 times a day, driving by his house, driving by our offices, driving by the health club where you worked out, the restaurant you ate lunch in. Right. And I freely admit I ran away. I had to go somewhere else to change the scenery of those day-to-day reminders. Now, when, the person who murdered him went on trial, I was asked by the family to give the victim's impact statement. And I was honored to be asked to do that. But it was one of the most difficult things I've ever done in my entire life, to stand 8 feet away from the guy that did this and have to address the court for a period of time. And there are still things that you read and dreams that you have and just things that pop in your head that no matter where you're at geographically. So it has been better not to see those same triggers every day, but at the same time, it's been still difficult dealing with this. But
and you're continuing to lead the company you guys started together. So
doubt,
you're involved in this day to day all the time.
Every day. And I do this. And one of the reasons I mention this is because it's just about his genius. I'm the business sense, but there's a lot of good business people. There's not very many geniuses that are entrepreneurial that can start a company. And I done this to honor him. And this company is very successful now. And it's a testament to his legacy and the wonderful person, because after this happened, about 90 days right before I moved here, I was sitting at my home office in Huntington Beach, California, and I just happened to Google search his name. I typed in Dr. Ronald Gilbert, and literally all the entries were doctor shot by crazy guy, doctor murdered, and it broke my heart because I said, not only did this guy murder him, he took his legacy. He's no longer a father, a husband, a doctor. He's a doctor shot by the crazy guy. So I'm going to change that so he is known as a wonderful human being who invented a product that changed many people's lives. It was very beneficial.
Right. All right. So let's talk about premature ejaculation. I mean, you already said it's sort of defined, at least in the ISSM, as 90 seconds or less, right? Lasting 90 seconds or less before orgasm. I know that in terms of ASEC, the sex therapy community, we're thinking it needs to be coupled with some distress about that. People have different sexual functioning, and if it doesn't bother anybody, it's not a disorder. but
exactly. Well, how about this? And I want your opinion as a therapist on this. I think it should be changed to something that is more subjective, where you literally say, if your intimacy with your partner, or in your own mind, if your intimacy can be enhanced by a longer session, longer duration of intimacy, then maybe you should see help, and you could be classified as someone who would want to seek options to, literally enhance their ability to last longer from an intimacy standpoint and get away from this hard 115 second, 90 second, absurd definition.
I totally agree that there's not a line, shorter than this, you've got PE, longer than this, you don't. That's arbitrary. But I also wouldn't say just that because everybody wants to enhance their sexual life doesn't mean they have a disorder. But there's still a role for I'm always trying to get couples to think, what's working for the two of you? What do you want? What do you want to improve? And then what are the tools you might use? But in terms of technical premature ejaculation, is there anything else that defines it or that people need to understand about what it is or why it happens?
I will tell you that this was a real eye-opener for me, because all these old wives' tales are out there about a man doesn't care enough about his partner, so he just ejaculates, or you don't have the mental strength to last longer. There are certain cases of premature ejaculation that are psychological in nature. There's no question about that.
Right.
But I will also tell you there are 4 to 5, not limited to, but including hypersensitivity to the penile nerves, prostatitis, low testosterone, that all contribute to premature ejaculation. So let's get over this idea that you're not strong mentally if you can't last, or you don't care about your woman. If you would talk to some of these people, you would find there's no one that wants to please their woman more than someone who's been a premature ejaculation for a period of time.
Right.
And I always use this analogy. Would we ever look down on a person who has diabetes for taking insulin? Would we ever look down on a person with cancer for taking chemo and go, no, go home and focus, and then you'll be able to beat chemo or cancer without chemo, or diabetes without insulin? And in the issues where it is psychological in nature, behavioral therapy works. I believe that even if it's physiological in nature, a combination of behavioral and some products may help. And even if your problem is psychological in nature, having something like Promescent with behavioral helps, because a man who has had chronic PE doesn't even realize the feeling of inevitability. And so to regain that and get that confidence back and then slowly wean off something could be a help as well. So there's no one size fits all. You know what I mean?
Right.
And there really needs to be education so that people realize all of the different products that are available. One of the things when I took over this company was extremely important for me was to know the options that existed. I literally went and tried every different option. I tried our product. And you're obviously aware of this as a therapist, one of the things that many people used over a long period of time were SSRIs. Now, most non-medical people go, what's an SSRI? Selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor.
An antidepressant, yes.
An antidepressant, Zoloft, Paxil, Prozac.
Right.
And they do work. So I had Ron, this was when Ron was still alive. I said, prescribe me whatever dose that they do for PE of one of these. And it was serotonin, serotonin. It's, I think, Zoloft,
Yeah.
So he gave me the low dose of that. So I took it, and it does work. You literally could last forever. As a matter of fact, after 8 days or 9 days, I literally could not ejaculate. I'm like, wait a second,
well,
okay?
I was going to say, not only do antidepressants, sometimes have this, they delay orgasm, but sometimes it makes it hard to get erect, or sometimes it makes it hard to even get to an orgasm at all, right?
Here's the next thing, okay? So after a week or 8 days, I literally could not finish. I'm like, wait, I put all this work in. Okay, I'm finishing. Okay. But the worst part was then the second week, I literally lost my libido.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding you. I literally, if someone would have said, here's a Victoria's Secret supermodel, comes walking in your house in a trench coat, she's naked with a ham sandwich, I'd say, give me the ham sandwich. It was like someone took my libido, put it in a garment bag, and threw it in the back of the closet somewhere.
Right.
And then I started getting dry mouth. Literally, it felt like someone put a blow dryer in my mouth. And I started having like nausea. If you're not depressed, the side effects of being on an antidepressant, I think personally are worse than PE.
Yeah.
So you have to make that choice. If you have severe PE, do I want to go through all the side effects? So I literally said to myself, that's when I invested in the company and took it over. I went, wait a second, if these are the options out there and I use this and it works without those side effects, I love this company. I love these products.
Hey, it's Jessa. I'm just taking a little break to invite you to my free monthly webinars that I do on a variety of topics that always include an open Q&A session with me at the end. I'm doing these monthly. If you want to hear about them, be invited so you can register. Make sure you join my mailing list. You can go to bettersexpodcast.com/list. Could you speak to what are the impacts of PE? On the men that are experiencing this, on the relationships that they're in, like what are the kinds of things you hear from people that are struggling?
absolutely a complete lack of confidence that not only spreads from the bedroom into all aspects of life. I really believe that it's a basic, but this isn't just to men and women both, that it's a basic human want to satisfy your partner. This isn't in some testosterone thumping, oh, me, Tarzan, you, just in terms of bringing pleasure to your partner. If you feel that you're not sufficient in any area of your life, whether it's in earning power, whether whatever, and especially in the bedroom, you feel less than. And I call this the layering effect. So you start shutting down because you feel like you're not satisfying your partner. Your partner feels unattractive because you're not initiating or being amorous to your partner. Then you start feeling more distant because, I call it layering, and one layer after another. And pretty soon, it's not even about this. It's about you are totally disconnected. You're about to go your separate ways without realizing it all stemmed from one issue. So there needs to be more communication. And PE is not immune from that. It's one of those things that if you don't talk, if you don't seek a solution, okay, you won't even realize it's this. You'll think you have no connection with your partner, and it'll all be stemming from something like this. So the lack of self-esteem on the man's part is real. The lack of feeling appreciated or desired then comes from the woman in response to the guy not initiating from a physical standpoint, the intimacy standpoint. So I think those are the two biggest issues that we hear over and over and over again. When I do a lot of terrestrial radio and I do Sirius radio and some kinds of podcasts, and they'll have call-ins, and this won't surprise you, 50%, maybe even slightly higher, the people that call in are women. 50%. But the crazy thing, they all start with the exact same question, okay? How can I bring this up without offending my partner?
Right.
Because if you bring it up in, I don't want to say an accusatory tone, but very focused, like you're not lasting long enough, then right away the guy's on a defensive and it's not a good situation. So I always say the same thing. I say, schedule a 50 Shades of Gray night. Get a feather duster and a blindfold and a riding crop and like 4 or 5 different things, and throw a bottle of Promescent in there without even, focusing on that. Have him try it. Because if there's one thing that men like, it's control. I'm not kidding you. I always make this running joke, like if you got to dinner with another couple and the wife drives, I go, oh, do you have a DUI? You know what I mean? To the guys, because guys want that control. You go over and, there's a guy and his girlfriend watching TV. The guy grabs the remote control. Guys love control. I don't know why it is, but it's freaky. And I fall into that same pattern. So I try to get myself out of that. Literally, I'll say to my girlfriend once in a while, why don't you drive? And they'll go, what? And I'll go, yeah, I want to see what it looks like from the passenger side, just so I get myself out of that mindset. And I find myself like, we'll sit down to an evening, we're going to watch Netflix or whatever. I give her the remote control, let her pick it. And sometimes I get this urge, like I want to grab it back, but I go, no, I want to force myself just to make sure that I'm not in this mode of being in control. Because running a company, being a CEO, you're in control all day. You don't want that to translate into your relationship.
So wait, do I understand you right, that your advice to these women that do these call-ins is not to actually talk to their partner about this, but to use the Promescent and see what happens?
No, I want it to be twofold. Number one, I want you to say, let's have a date night, and that's how you incorporate this product into it. But if you literally say, we have an issue in this area, try this product. From experience, I know a lot of women tell me the guys immediately withdraw and they look at like, oh my God, I'm so deficient. You know what I mean? So I think the best thing to do in the case of, especially when someone's calling in like that, is to address it and then bring it up. Hey, isn't this a great thing, a great way to address this? Our intimacy is much better now. And we've had guys whose wives have done this, and we have dialogue, like their wife will email me and I'll go, hey, can I talk to your husband? And we have these dialogue. And I'll go, how's it feel? And they go, I literally was in a situation where I felt this little guy on my shoulder. Don't. Oh, I hope just, that's where I came up with that thing about, oh my God, I hope she doesn't get on top. Because certain positions, it's harder for a guy to last longer. Certain positions, like missionary, guys have much more control. When a woman gets on top and a woman has the ability to change the rhythm and everything else, then a guy can lose control much more frequently.
Right.
So that's where I've had guys tell me, wow, I used this product. I didn't even know I had an issue. But once I have always had this little guy on my shoulder. Oh, not yet. She's not done yet. Guys are very acutely aware of if their partner has climaxed.
Yeah.
And intimacy should never be about anxiety. It should be about enjoying and letting go. You know what I mean? Not sitting there on eggshells like, oh, no, not yet. And, it's funny because when the dialogue switches from, do I need to make sure she's done before I can feel that ability to let go, rather than go, I know she's going to do it, or we'll finish that part later, but I know that I'm going to have a great experience. That ability to let go and live in the moment instead of trying to remove yourself is positive for guys.
Right. Well, it is for everybody. I mean, it's interesting. My language around this, there's some of the things you're talking about is I've coined the term the sexual avoidance cycle, which is sort of this layering thing you're talking about. Because when sex is disappointing or stressful, or it seems like this failure or something else, it doesn't meet our expectations, we start to avoid it, right? We avoid the things that make us feel bad.
Absolutely.
Except that only increases the pressure, and it increases the pressure the next time you have sex. At this time, better go okay, because we're not doing it that much. And it just, couples get caught in that.
It's crazy. And the one way to ensure that you'll stay into that issue, the dysfunction, so to speak, is to have the anxiety and to do it infrequently. Because as a man, the more infrequent the sex, the less control you have, because there's this buildup where you haven't ejaculated or had intimacy. And then in your own mind, it becomes more of an issue. Like,
no, exactly.
Oh my God.
The pressure only gets bigger and bigger and bigger, which sets you up to feel like you're failing, air quotes here again. And that's where people get so stuck, as opposed to, I always use the analogy of sex being like the playground. Like, it's fun. There's nothing to be afraid of. You just go, you show up, whatever happens, happens, Like it doesn't have to be this fraught, loaded thing.
You shouldn't be sitting there. Oh my God, this is like everything's riding on the next 5 minutes, and it has to be. Yeah,
I know, but so many people find themselves there. It's just heartbreaking. So, all right. So tell us about Promescent and what's in it. How does this work?
There had been products prior to Promescent, and I'll refer to them as the cane family of products: lidocaine, benzocaine, prilocaine.
Yeah,
and they all basically had the same upside, same downside. You would apply them, and the man would be able to last longer, but he would be numb. And then it would also transfer to the female partner. She would get numb.
Right.
And so, again, it's like SSRIs. You're reaching the desired goal, which is longer sex, but at the expense of pleasure. And that's not obviously what you're all doing. So what Ron did is he got together with a gentleman by the name of Tony Capomaccio, who was a PhD in organic chemist. And he had done similar products to this. And they took lidocaine and they changed the melting structure, the melting point, melting temperature of lidocaine. And they created this eutectic formula. And what it does, it changes lidocaine from a crystal to an oil aqueous form. When it does, it penetrates the dermis or stratum corneum, the outer layer of the skin. So once the lidocaine, you apply it, you wait 5 to 10 minutes. We say 10 minutes because we want everyone to be on the safe side. But once that lidocaine absorbs through the dermis or stratum corneum, you feel a much higher degree of surface sensitivity, and it doesn't transfer to your partner. But it gets suspended in that fatty tissue underneath, so it allows you to control, the ejaculatory response. So that is a revolutionary technique, and it's patented, and it's unique only to Promescent. And so that's what gives you the ability to last much longer. It's fascinating. And that is obviously a very, significant accomplishment. And so that is the basis of the product. And without that, we're just like everyone else that's out there. And so we face the battle where people see, oh, it's a lidocaine-based product. Oh, it's another one of those lidocaine or, cane products, without people realizing it. That's why it's so important, instead of running a 30-second commercial or a banner ad, is to be with educators like yourself who understand and have people to come to them because they know that they're not running 40-second commercials all throughout the thing, and they're really in this for the education, for the betterment. And I always tell people we're a couples therapy. We're not all about a man just lasting longer, because the reason you want to last longer is to have better intimacy with your partner, whoever that may be.
Right.
So it's extremely important that we get the ability to explain the viability and the credibility. We're in the protocol of 2,200 urologists, meaning that if you go in to see these urologists by name, in their protocol, it names Promescent as the way to treat PE. We're extremely proud of that. We have a clinical survey, which was done by the University of Kentucky Sexual Wellness Center, Dr. Kristen Mark. I don't know if you know Kristen. She does a lot of research. So we conducted, and these things are very expensive, but they're very worthwhile to have an IRB, which is Institutional Review Board, IRB certified, which means they look at the protocol of your study and say, yes, this is a significant study. And then we have statistically significant results, which means the results are so dramatic, it can't be an outlier. There has to be a clinical reason why people are deriving the benefit that they do. So that was a revolutionary day in our development to have an IRB certified statistically significant clinical trial. We're very proud of that. Yeah. So that gave us a lot of credibility in the therapist area. And then from there, Laura Berman and Ian Kerner and a lot of these people, Justin Laymiller, got involved with us because they were, whoa, these guys actually have clinical studies. I mean, we're very proud of that. I hate to keep, pounding my chest on that one, but that was my idea. And people go, that was genius. And I go, no, I followed the logic when I saw Viagra came out. They did clinical studies for viability and efficacy. Right. And so you get that. And then since we're OTC, we're not a prescription, we're over the counter, people don't have to see physicians. So we can't just rely strictly on physicians, because even these days with Roman and Hims and, all these online pharmacies and doctor visits now, a lot of people are self-diagnosing and doing it online. So it's extremely important to have an online presence. But when you have the medical credibility to differentiate yourself, that is also very important. Right, so we're very proud of the fact that we did things the right way. We went with the medical credibility, and that we have a lot of followers both in the urological and the therapist area. I'm extremely proud of that. That's our roots. That's where we came from, being developed by a urologist. And now, we go to ASICS every year. We have a booth now. And, I can't tell you that how much we appreciate people like yourselves that bring us to your audience. It's about a platform where people can take the time to be educated. Right.
So you spray this on, right?
Yes.
And if you wait the 5 to 10, 10 minutes, is it then, is it safe for oral sex? Is this something that people can ingest, or does it fully absorb before then?
It fully absorbs, but I tell people there's a little bit of an aftertaste. And that's the last thing you want is someone going, wait a second, what is going on here?
So maybe our next development needs to be some sort of flavored Promescent, right?
We're working on 2 different ones right now, and we're very close to having one that's totally neutral. Because believe it or not, this breaks my heart to hear this, but it's just a fact that a lot of men will say, I don't want my partner to know I'm using this. Do you have anything that's... And, to me, you should never inject anything into your intimacy without fully sharing it with who you're intimate with.
Yeah.
But I alone can't change the norm in the society we live in. You know what I mean? And so that's one thing. Now, the flavor, I shouldn't say flavor, the scent it is right now is very medicinal. It almost smells like Listerine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Something like those. So it's not bad, but there is a definite scent to it. So we're working with a coconut flavor, believe it or not, for the one that will be flavored.
Yeah.
And, that seems to be, we've run it by some of our existing customers. Hey, which one of these would you prefer? And that seems to be the one. There's a citrus. Those 2 are running kind of like, we sent out like 4 different ones. It's like 40, 40, and then 10 and whatever. So those 2 are like neck and neck for the ones that people prefer out of the ones that will have a scent to it.
Right. Okay, makes sense. So where can people find you, learn more? Where do they go?
We're all over the place. The name of the product is called Promescent, Promescent, and it's at www.promescent.com. We are obviously on eBay. We're on Amazon. We're in Target. We're on our website. We're on Walmart.com. But I always suggest to people start at our website because it's very educational. So if you go to the Promescent website, you'll be able to educate yourself. Plus, you put in your zip code, it'll show you which Targets near you carry it, which independent. We're also in a bunch of independent pharmacies, which I didn't mention, and also a bunch of urologists and some therapists actually carry it right in their office.
Right.
So what'll happen if you go to our website, even if you want to buy it elsewhere, put in your zip code, it'll show you all the places locally where you can pick it up. It'll show you all the places where it's at online. Plus, there's an educational video about this and other products. We have lubes, we have condoms, we have a product called VitaFlux. So there's a number of products there, but you can be educated on this product with some videos. So I suggest starting there, even if you want to buy it elsewhere from Target or independent pharmacy or a therapist, go and get the education first to make sure this product meets your needs or expectations to learn as much about it. This is about education.
Right.
The more education, the more facts that you have, the better. There's videos of people who've actually used the product before. There's videos of therapists and urologists talking about, how they've incorporated it into their practice, those types of things. So I suggest start at www.promescent.com. And then even if you want to buy it on Amazon, eBay, Target, go there. But learn as much about the product as you can prior to making a decision. Don't just rush on and go, this is the best thing ever. Go and learn about it. And, the one thing we suggest, we're very proud of this. Our contraindication lines, we've had no significant calls in 2 million bottles over 8 years. But if you have an allergy to lidocaine and all this stuff is on there, then you will develop, some itching and redness. It's not anything catastrophic. But we want you to be aware of that in case you do have a lidocaine allergy prior to purchasing Promescent.
Right. And then I guess I would put in a plug to people that are listening that if it's not as simple as the spray, if the intimacy issues go deeper or people need help talking about it or whatever, consider a therapist. Like this could go hand in hand. So,
it goes hand in hand. We have a resource finder, a physician finder on our website, and it incorporates both therapist and urologist. And that's one thing, even if you find something and you go, I think this might, and you want that extra level of confidence, you can go to our site and look for a urologist or a therapist in your area. This is a serious part of life. Sex intimacy is a huge part of your life. If you're not 100% confident, go see someone. You know what I mean? Yeah. I laugh. People go to the gym. They have a personal trainer. We have life coaches. Real estate agents have sales coaches, okay? For something as serious as your health or your intimacy, it doesn't hurt to go to a doctor, you know what I mean? Or a therapist and say, hey, this is what I'm planning on doing. Would you give me any suggestions? And, I think as a society, we've moved way past the idea that, going to a therapist means that you have mental issues, okay? Right. Everyone, whether they're chronic or even short-term, sometimes needs a little bit of advice how to get over something, especially something like this. One thing I want to mention, too, is that we're always open to working in conjunction with clinical studies and, new things that go on, because it's extremely important for us to embrace the medical community. They helped us get to where we're at, and they also are in positions. Maybe there's things that we aren't aware of yet that we can learn from them.
Right.
And if we can partner with them, if we can do clinical studies on different aspects with them, it's the best thing for us.
Yeah.
And we, like I said earlier when we chatted, I can't tell you how much I just appreciate the ability to speak to your audience.
No, thank you so much for taking the time to do so. I'm happy to get the message out. So.
It's our pleasure. I have a code here. I was going to give your listeners a discount.
Oh, yeah.
I'm looking for, Better Sex 15.
Okay.
One word, BETTERSEX 15, no spaces. Great. And they'll receive a 15% discount on anything they buy if they use that code, Better Sex 15. When you go to order, it'll say coupon code. Just put in Better Sex 15.
Cool. I'll put that in the show notes too, so they've got it.
I really appreciate that. And I can't thank you enough, because this is our lifeblood. This is how we've grown. It's through, physicians and therapists that are truly trying to educate and help the people that they deal with.
Yeah. Great. Thank you so much.
It was my pleasure. Thanks.
You've been listening to Better Sex. Please visit our website, bettersexpodcast.com, for show notes and additional episodes.
And that's a wrap for today. I really hope you enjoyed the episode. If you are enjoying the podcast, if some of this material resonates with you and you would like to make a difference and make sure that this keeps coming out in the world once a week, ongoing, there are a couple things you could do to show your appreciation. The first would be to go to iTunes and rate and review the show. That really helps us be found by new listeners when you review the show on iTunes. You can find a link at bettersexpodcast.com/iTunes. The other thing I want to invite you to consider is becoming a Patreon. For a small monthly pledge, you get some benefits. So for $2 a month, you get advance access to every single episode. For $5 a month, you get a chapter of my upcoming new book. And for $10 a month, I host quarterly get-to-know-you and question and answer chats over the web, and you get invited to that. I would love to have your membership in that, become part of the Better Sex family. You can find a link at bettersexpodcast.com/Patreon, which is Patreon. Again, thanks for listening. I'm glad you're here. Feel free to comment, ask questions, get in touch. I'd love to hear from listeners. Thanks.